Kelly, do we have a recording?
Recording in progress.
Oh, took the words right out of my mouth. Call to order this February 28th meeting of the Public Safety Committee. Roll call, please. Nice.
Realized my mic was on.
Chairman Plufka,
Here.
Alderwoman Sims,
Here.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Definitely. Here.
Alderman Erger,
Here.
all members present.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Second item on the agenda is the approval or amendment to the agenda. Has everybody on the committee had a chance to look at the agenda? Are there any changes they want to make? Seeing none, hearing none, the agenda will stand as submitted. Number 3, we have citizen comments. Anybody who is in the audience or online has the opportunity at this point to address this committee on any issue of public safety. You'll be given 3 minutes. Please identify yourself and see if anybody wants to come to the microphone.
Online.
Thank you. I declare the citizen comments section closed and go on to section 4, the report of the committee chair and alderman. As chairman, I do not have a report. Alderwoman Sims?
No report.
Thank you. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Back in November, I had brought up the issues we're having on parking on the east side of Dorothy, and I just lost my board. Since that time, at that time, we thought we could maybe tackle the problem with signage, but what we kind of learned in the meantime was that there was a policy put in place by the apartment owner of the building that exits onto Dorothy, that he would tow any unlicensed vehicles off his lot. Well, what that did is it pushed the tenants off onto Dorothy, so what was usually had no parking on the east side, and you can see from the photos in your board docs, is now a half dozen cars that are parked along Dorothy that are unregistered or have no license plates. And it's causing an issue of people trying to turn into the apartment complex because it reduces that section of the road down to 1 lane, and people that are coming southbound have to wait, and people that are going northbound have to wait to try to turn into the apartment complex. The other thing I've learned since then, and I guess Bernie could maybe talk to this, is when cars are parked in front of that entrance, the fire trucks and ambulances may have a issue with trying to pull in to that delay in being able to get into that entry with cars parked there. So what I'm trying to do is figure out a way that we could somehow alleviate the problem with parking along that side. We talked about signage, I think, at the first meeting, but I'm worried if we place signage at that area, then it will push the cars down in front of the residential areas along Dorothy where people live. So I'm reaching out to staff to maybe come up with some ideas. One of the things I thought of was possibly sending a nicely worded letter to Mr. Mills, the owner of the complex, stating that we do have a problem with getting our fire trucks into that area, and maybe he could reconsider his policy on unlicensed cars being parked on his property. 2, maybe look into our ordinances as far as unlicensed and unregistered vehicles on our public streets and how we handle those. And then 3, maybe look at, and once again, our fire department can chime in, there is a section of parking there that maybe we need to limit or have no parking so the fire truck can manipulate that turn and be able to get in quickly.
Before we go on any further on this discussion, I'd like to recognize Alderman Gould and ask him if he has any interest in coming to the podium.
Jeff Gould. I live on Mary Avenue, and I see the traffic quite a bit. And as Steve mentioned, when we talked about where to have the ingress and egress of this apartment complex, it was mostly to try to encourage tenants to use southbound Dorothy to get to Manchester as efficiently as possible to mitigate cut-through traffic through the residential streets. That was the biggest issue. Another part of the issue was making sure that safety and security vehicles are able to, and trucks that deliver people's belongings to their apartment can get in and out without causing damage or safety concerns. I think that the issue of that they've had with towing the unlicensed vehicles, that's a bigger issue than I think we can solve. That created or I guess highlighted the issue, the problem that I see that we do need to address. And I think that it's not unreasonable to think that even if we got Mr. Mills to relax the policy and those tenants who I've spoken to, at least one of them, who, I mean, she doesn't want to park there, but feels compelled to park there because she knows that they're going to be towing. It's not unreasonable to think that if we have a large event happening at the park and we don't have a ton of parking, people might come and just park along our residential streets. Creating an area there that is no parking, so it allows safety and security, I think is a very important part of this, regardless so it's multiple factors. This is more than just an inconvenience for the folks that live down there that have to wait for a line of cars to come and go. That is a factor. It is an annoyance. The residents that live along there have trouble. They don't feel confident they can park their cars on the street because they've seen our trash trucks barely miss their cars, so they try to park on their driveways, their very small driveways. Now they have concerns, and they've approached me about it, saying that, you know, I get blocked in because people are waiting for cars coming from the north, and they've got to wait till the traffic goes, and then they can go, and then they don't even really know that I'm trying to get out of my driveway. And then sight lines, they're concerned about trying to pull out of their driveway and then having an accident. So we didn't know that this was going to be an issue, but I think this situation has highlighted a few things that we probably need to address. Sure.
Posed an email to the owner of the property we're talking about. Did you get any response?
I did. His response was, I think they've been in some offsite meetings or something. He didn't indicate whether he was aware of it. He said, thanks for, you know, raising the awareness, and then asked for his team to follow up on this issue. So I assume we'll hear more. I simply was asking for potentially their cooperation in this because, you know, it's going to take a lot of factors, I think.
If we do, if this committee does come up with a couple of ideas that would involve restricting parking along the east side of Dorothy, what do you think about? Alderman Lockmuller has already made the point that if we only do it along a portion of it, say the portion that directly relates to the ingress and egress of the apartment complex, does that, in a sense, just sort of push the problem in both directions, north and south?
If they don't relax their,
does it impact more houses?
If they don't relax their policy on the towing of unlicensed vehicles, yeah, it'll just push those vehicles will find other places that aren't restricted parking. Just today, there were 4 or 5 cars there during the middle of the day, and I noticed one other car on Florence. So they're starting to wrap around Florence already. That I know wasn't a vehicle that is owned by the people that live there, and it had stickers on it that were violations of, you know, unlicensed vehicles. So they're finding other places to park. So we do need to get cooperation with them and somehow, in addition to some potential enforcement.
Hang on, but before I recognize anybody, I just want to ask one more other point. Madam City Administrator, didn't we have a situation in Ward 1, and I can't remember the street now. Is it Bridgeport? What was the street in which we actually permitted parking, but it was permitted for vehicles that were registered as being on that street?
Right, I think it was Bridgeport. It is Ward 1.
Did that work? I mean, did that,
We never heard back, so I presume it did.
because I'm wondering out loud, if some policy that goes to those homeowners and says, we're gonna give you the ability to park along this street and nobody else. In other words, parking by permit only, and issue the permits to those houses and restrict it from everybody else.
And I think that we should look at any and all possibilities of
Okay.
You say unlicensed, you just mean that their tags are expired?
expired tags, sometimes no license plates at all.
sometimes.
So, I mean, how many cars are we talking about?
Every day that area gets full of cars, so it can be
But
anywhere
are all of the
from
vehicles,
What's
do
that?
do all of the vehicles have expired tags?
every single one of them.
Why is this property owner towing, I mean, vehicles when, I mean, are they
Question.
tenants? Are they, I mean, and then.
They are tenants.
Yeah,
So-
they're
so-
tenants that live there, but they are afraid to park in the parking field that's designated for the apartment complex because there's signage, a lot of signage, actually,
Yes.
2 or 3 signs, that says if you're if the vehicle's unregistered, you risk being towed.
What, did,
And apparently he is
why are
towing,
they,
I don't know.
Yeah.
well, why is he doing that? Did he say?
My first email was to find out if he was even aware of the issue. So that's something I think we'll have to,
I think we've heard that it's his property manager that instituted this policy. And some of the staff members who know more, whenever Alderman
Okay.
Plufka, you're
All
ready
right.
to recognize him.
so,
Wanna
yep.
take away from you.
Any more questions for me?
I mean, I can get around, either, I don't think we should, if permitting, I think that you're saying you get a permit there, I know our owners and tenants, I mean, I feel like we're singling out people who, it's not safe to have a car that's not safe on the road. But these are administrative infraction, it's the driving while poor
No, my
problem.
biggest
I mean,
concern
and to single
is,
them out more, I'm kind of.
my biggest concern about this, like I said, when it's an inconvenience, because you have to wait for line of traffic to come through before you can even go, that's not a reason to take issue. What Steve and I were starting to really become concerned about was realizing that it becomes a public safety issue not only for their tenants who have to then park and cross over several streets, and why they should be able to park by their apartment complex. That's why we're hoping to get them relaxed policy there. But regardless of that, you take that away, it still means that there is a problem area that narrows down to a very narrow street. Anybody who parks along that stretch is going to impede the potential of the fire or ambulance or police to get in there quickly. And we've had tragic incidents there in the past. Seconds matter. You watch the news at all. There are apartment fires that happen, and we need to be able to get in there quickly. That's the biggest concern that I have, So if that means that a certain section of Dorothy adjacent, just on the east side of the entrance, running north a certain amount of room so that it allows the safety and security vehicles to actually navigate that turn in the quickest way, then that's what we should do. And if it pushes them in front of other residential, okay. But again, to me, that's the bigger concern.
Stay there.
Can-
Assistant Chief,
Can I
do you, have you?
finish?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I say no part, I mean, I can get around that. I just don't, I have concerns about the net result being that we further single out, people who have their tags expired. I mean, because definitionally, they're not operating their vehicle, there's parking. I mean,
Yeah, but we're not, but let's be clear, if we talk about restricting parking on the east side of Dorothy, we're not limiting it to unregistered vehicles. We're saying no
yeah,
vehicles
no
can
one,
park.
I'm fine, I just didn't know if we were to sort of further along with this policy of this apartment complex owner, that for whatever reason, he's singling out, tenants who have expired license plate tags.
Right.
I mean, I just think, I mean, I would rather just say no parking, like, license, current tags or not. I mean, I'm fine with that, if it's a safety issue.
Yeah, can you come, do you know how to speak to this issue? I just wanted to get your take. I mean, we've been talking about the fact that we're all assuming that cars parked there is gonna impede emergency vehicles, and not just Brentwood. I mean, if we're talking about fighting a fire, we're talking about vehicles from other communities too, right?
Right, so the biggest issue that we see, the shortest route from our location, if we're in quarters, is to go down Eulalie and take the back way. That's the fastest way.
Sure.
Our fire truck will make the right turn into the complex. Every other piece of apparatus that's coming on that call is coming south on Brentwood, east on Manchester, and they're gonna come up Dorothy, and they're gonna have to make the left turn to go into Van Mark Way. If there are any cars parked there at all, the shortest fire truck is gonna have issues. The longest one, which is the most important, the ladder truck, will not be able to make the turn without hitting a car or something.
And there's a cement island in there too, right?
There is. It's designed to be driven over, but if we're driving over, it's because they can't make the swing to the right to make the hard turn to the left because there's vehicles in the way. And to Alderman Sims' point, if the fire truck hits a licensed car and an unlicensed car, it's still impeding our progress.
Well, I would just, parking along there has never been an issue until that policy was implemented. That's the catalyst for the problem we have now. And I just think, we need to somehow, that's his problem. He's now pushed that problem onto the street. Whatever we put on the street as far as signage, they're going to find someplace else to park because they can't park in their own apartment complex. They're already starting to move up on the Florence. Jeff pointed out a car that was up there. They're going to find places to park on our public streets because of his policy, and I think he needs to reverse the policy.
So, did you want to?
I agree. I think too, is there, it's a good question to ask, is there any kind of registration system with the apartment complex? If your car's registered, but maybe your tags are expired, can you still park there? Yeah, I think we need to find a way around that rule. Yeah.
How long ago was that email written that you wrote?
Oh, I just sent it this week, a couple days ago.
You guys want to handle this kind of in a two-part kind of
Well, I
process,
think-
or what do you want to do?
I'd like to direct staff, if Jeff agrees, if the committee
If
agrees.
it's all right, if you would recognize maybe Chief Spees and Dan Gumersheimer. We met with City Attorney this morning, and we may have a temporary solution, unless you want to make the request and then we react
No,
to that.
No, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah.
Good evening. We had a meeting today, as Bola indicated. The fire department, us, Dan was there. There's a couple of issues on Dorothy, as you guys know. One is it gets very narrow there. So it's clear that our ordinances allow us to tow vehicles for public safety reasons if vehicles are parked unsafely. So we need the signage up. Dan's willing to put the signs up going forward. We have 90 days to do that on what is really an emergency basis. So for 90 days, we could sign that area and then remove vehicles if they park there in violation of the sign. After that 90-day period, we would have to have an ordinance, at least this is our understanding from Mr. O'Keefe, we would need the ordinance passed that allowed permanent signage in that area so that we could go forward from there.
Would you confine the signage to the area directly across from the entrance?
That was the theory, but we did discuss what Steve was, Alderman Lockmiller brought up. It's probably going to force that parking. We were hoping across Manchester. But it's probably going to put them into some of those areas. Signing those areas for resident parking only. The only issue might be is that when they have visitors that come to their house.
Right.
And if somebody calls on it, I think our officers are well smart enough to figure that out so that they'll allow that parking. But that's an option. You could sign the neighborhood around there, so potentially for resident parking only.
So what if in addition to doing that on a 90-day basis, we continued this effort of communicating with Mills, the group, and saying, look, you know, we're doing this temporarily because public safety is involved here. But if you're not going to reevaluate this policy, we may well make this permanent. And you're gonna have tenants that are gonna be parking blocks from where they live. I mean, you know, or you could rethink this policy.
We have, Alden, just so you're aware, we have visited both the management and the guy that's responsible for the parking lot safety down there. They are very, they're not changing their policy, I don't think, unless their hand really gets forced. They will not change it. You can have some conjecture as to why they're doing it. I think a logical assumption is to their credit, I guess, they're trying to keep their apartment complex safe. And it limits the people that are renting there from potentially being people that cause problems. There may be a nexus between people that aren't licensing their vehicles and they're not doing the right thing on that side, and they become irresponsible tenants. I think they make that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So to sign in the parking lot, your cars need to be, that creates a safer, in their mind, I think, it creates a safer environment in the apartment complex. And I think that's why they're doing it.
So given this discussion, anybody want to make a? Oh, I'm sorry. Absolutely. Sure.
Just to add to the conversation, I've looked at this a couple different times. So looking back at the original design drawings, you know, originally the street was supposed to go north and south and connect to Mary, and then nobody wanted that. So in 2020, it was decided to come across the Greenway with Van Mark Way to connect to Dorothy. So the way it's designed, that island, you're only supposed to be able to go at a right-hand turn if you're exiting Van Mark Way and going southbound Dorothy. Some people have gotten creative and tried to make that left-hand turn. So that's why I was saying one of the signs we'd have to order would be like right turn only, and we can even paint a right arrow as you leave so that you're not turning left. And then as we discussed earlier today, you could prohibit parking. We've got signs in stock. You could put some temporary posts up that would say no parking between signs. So you would limit it just a little bit north of that island. There's essentially a post there that says slow children. We could remove the sign and put a no parking sign there. And then to the south, closer to that home, that's directly across from that entrance, we would put another no parking sign. That person does have a driveway. I don't know if they park in the street often or at all, but you would basically limit that, I want to say it was like 60, 70 feet segment.
Yeah.
And the rest of Dorothy's okay. There is a no parking area on Dorothy, but it's all the way up by Eulalie. That's the only thing that's in table 3A currently, which is the no
way
parking.
farther up, though.
Yeah, way further north.
I guess I'd make a motion to direct staff to look into the signage as and has mentioned.
What about making its temporary placement for 90 days to see?
The code authorizes that, 305.060.
Okay, for public safety purposes? Okay, so is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I mean, I believe in safety. There's just something about this policy that I don't think passes the smell. I mean, I just don't think it passes the smell test. I mean, I don't have, you know, the idea that there's a nexus between somebody committing a crime and having an expired license plate tag. I bet there's a disparate impact there, and how would indulging this policy, or, you know, it sits uneasy with me, you know.
But to be fair, the only party in this whole conversation that is singling out unregistered cars is Mills.
Right, now we're being roped into it.
We're not,
Like,
though,
I
because
mean-
our policy is coming from a standpoint of we need space for emergency vehicles. We need,
Right, but the only reason we need that is because of this policy.
but no, I mean,
This goes for any vehicle.
Not necessarily. I think that the policy ended up creating a condition that identified the problem. The problem always existed there, just nobody ever really wanted to park there. I guarantee you, when our park opens up and we've got a huge playground, and we've got people trying to find places to park, and they want to just, hey, let's park on this side and go under the tunnel, there may be cars that decide, I'll just park along Dorothy and then go under the tunnel and be right there. I think that even if those cars end up, not sitting there at a normal time, that's going to be a problem. So restricting parking in that for a section of Dorothy there is probably good policy regardless, no matter what vehicles are there. The concerns that the residents have that live along Dorothy are more so because so many cars that pull up there, whether they're registered vehicles or unregistered or illegal vehicles, doesn't matter to them. It's hard for them to get out of their driveway safely, because of the backup that happens in certain times of day. So I think there's a safety issue for Dorothy that was identified because of that policy. Policy aside, we probably do need to have them address that. I don't think that's something we legislate. We can go, though, look at restricting parking for a certain section so that no matter when we safely can get into that complex. That's how I feel about it.
All right. And any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller,
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
Any kind of rationale, or is that, oh, no, okay. All right, thank you. Steve, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. And we can bring this up as an agenda item, in March and revisit it at that point.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see where the unlicensed vehicles go.
Right.
Address it at that time.
Okay. Alderman Erger, do you have any report? Madam City Administrator,
No report.
thank you. We have the Police Department report.
During the reporting time that it's actually within the last few weeks, I think most of you are aware we've had some challenges in the police department and as a city with people that are experiencing some mental health crisis. Just a kind of a quick update on that and have you understand our perspective and what our background is in the police department dealing with these folks. We're working hand in hand with Whitney's people. It's been a good relationship as we try and help the neighbors in the city navigate these problem properties. The ones that we're experiencing are directly related to people in some version of a mental health crisis as well. So our officers are trained as critical incident team members, meaning that they get special counseling to deal with people in mental health crisis. In addition to that, during our officer safety role plays, we actually role play these out for people that are in severe crisis that our officers end up dealing with pretty much on a regular basis here in Brentwood. On the cases that we're mentioning, the one family, the son is now in counseling down south. He's going through drug and alcohol counseling, and the mother is getting some for the first time, I think, in a while, some real medical intervention. So hopefully that thing's going to turn better. Officer Jamie Clark, who you met as the Officer of the Year at the last board meeting, did a fantastic job as part of a process of identifying all of the problems. This is going back years with that particular family. She compiled a report, and she did it in 24 hours, presented it to a county judge, which resulted in both those people having to go before BJC. And really, that's the first time that we were able to get that part of this process moving. And we're hoping that it'll alleviate a lot of the problems that we're seeing out of that house. We had another problem property we're continuing to work with that off and on we have issues with people coming in and out of there. They're not supposed to be in there past 6 o'clock. So we're still working on that. The last one was a guy that threw a brick at his neighbor most recently, but he has been also referred to counseling and went to BJC too. So we've been busy in this reporting period. These aren't the only cases that we've dealt with, but our officers luckily are well trained in this and they're handling it well. During this time, we asked over the last really over the last year or two, we've been talking about the adjustment of the pursuit policy um, for enforcement activity. And so we have put together a team of officers. There's 5 of them. The special, kind of a special operations group. But I think it's important that you understand that these officers not only are going to do that nighttime crime detail, but we are really honing in on some particular areas with those 5 officers. One of them is our retail. So Alex Wilcox is kind of a retail specialist in terms of the groups that are moving in and out, stealing in our stores, going after people on their 3rd and 4th offense stealing, which is 4th offense is a felony. How are we making that transition from city ordinance violations to county court where these guys are actually being charged with felonies? So Alex is kind of taking the lead on that. He's the liaison with our stores. So that's also going to be part of their assignment. This group is working with our officer safety role play training, so they were going to become our gurus for working with our training in terms of being role players. So that'll help us because it's a real struggle for us to really be able to get people to come help us do that. And then, of course, they're going to do the nighttime detail. That's kind of going to be predicated on what we're seeing in the crime. We've been lucky in the last few months in that our nighttime crime has been down. We do have some cases, but it's not persistent at this point, so we continue to monitor that. They will be working 2 weeks a night, straight nights, 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. As they mix into their schedule. Obviously, if we know that there's activity and there's a kick-up of nighttime crime, they're going to go on to nights immediately from there. And then the last piece for that 5-officer unit is going to be what we call our bikes and hikes thing that we were doing over the last year, getting into the neighborhoods, riding their bikes, meeting the neighbors, getting out on foot, walking. So they'll do that when they're on days, and they might spend, just as an example, on a pretty day this week, they spent 4 hours in the neighborhoods on their bikes and then got off and did foot patrols. So they'll be all mixed into kind of a different mission, so to speak, and all predicated on what the lieutenants are seeing and what the need is. Right now, that special unit is, they've started off very well. They're up to 15 arrests in about 2 weeks, 5 of which involve gun cases. So those are all, a lot of those cases are coming out of our retail area. So what we're hoping to see is that our retail crime starts to come down as well as they're pounding on that area and working with the stores. We're getting immediate attention to people that are shoplifting. So a lot of them are getting caught. They've made a lot of arrests on shoplifting cases as well. January of this year, we continue to get some really good assistance out of our flock cameras. We've had 26 alerts. Out of those 26 alerts, they resulted in 8 fines by our officers of the car that was wanted. And out of those cars, we had felony fleeing events out of 5 of them. So this is all part of a process as we look at trying to protect the neighborhoods of Brentwood, where these cameras are deployed. It really allows our officers to hone in on cars that are of particular interest. On a related note on our flock cases and felony fleeing cases, last week, I was requested, along with all the area police chiefs, to go up to Jefferson City for a new law that's being pushed called the Valentine Law. This was after a St. Louis County officer who lost his life in the line of duty in a pursuit. And his last name was Valentine. They've named this the Valentine Law. And it really, the meat of this law is it creates a minimum mandatory if you flee from law enforcement in a reckless manner. It came out of committee already, 19-0 up in Jeff City. I wasn't sure folks in Jeff City could agree 19-0 on anything, but they have, and so it looks pretty good moving forward. Recently, at the...
Can I interrupt you for a second? Does
Yes,
that mean that that legislation is setting limits or minimums on what needs to be charged in the event that they're fleeing?
Yes, so there are certain things kick up a different degree. For example, if someone's hurt in a pursuit with law enforcement, it goes up to a B felony. If someone's killed during the pursuit, it's an A felony.
Okay.
But the big kick on that law is that minimum mandatory piece, that they have to go to jail for fleeing recklessly from law enforcement. So that was the one that we were really after on it. BOLA had asked a couple months ago that the police department deliver active shooter and safety training for the departments in our city. That's underway. The lieutenants and the majors are responsible for delivering that training. They've done it here at City Hall. They're doing Dan's group. So that'll probably be done in the next 60 days. Everybody here in Brentwood will have been through that training. So we're completing that.
Again,
Any chance we could get that training?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think it's a, in fact, since there has in fact been a shooting, it is during an alderman meeting or councilman meeting, I'd kind of like to know, I mean, I've never had that training. I think it's,
We certainly can. If you guys want it, we would do that.
or, I mean,
And
or
I
on
think
a
we can
voluntary
tailor it
basis,
for
I
you
will
as
sign
well.
up.
I think tailoring it for this group at this date in the event a violent act occurs on what your options are, I think is a great idea. So, yeah, we'll get it together. The last thing I was going to mention was I asked Javi, our SRO, and I think Bola sent all of you a message. We're just going to do a trash day on the 23rd of March, similar to what we did when I think it's the last 2 years we did that. So the high schoolers say they're going to help. We'll see how many show up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
questions on the committee? Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Bernie.
Thank you
Get a chance to
for
read
the
what was
opportunity to
submitted.
report out.
Yep, we did get a chance to read what was submitted and look forward to your report.
Okay, so under apparatus maintenance, the big one is the pump for the fire truck was delivered and installed and tested and passed. So everybody is happy to be back in the latest truck, and the pump seems to be running pretty well. They used it on the fire the other day, so it's worked out well. It does come with that 3-year warranty from the manufacturer on it, so that's a good thing. Our drone program has been successful to the point we're at 100 hours on the airframe, and I talked to the DJI vendor today, so that 100-hour maintenance doesn't need to be performed. It's more like your check engine light has come on, and they're going to request that they just cancel the check engine light on it. I do a weekly and a monthly maintenance on it anyway, and this is just based off hours usage, and essentially DJI wants you to buy a maintenance plan. It's kind of a marketing tool. So the aircraft still flies, and it's all fine and dandy. So that's a little bit different than what we reported. I just got that information at 3:30 today. The big thing for this week, at midnight on Thursday, we stop using the emergency reporting platform and we switch over to ESO. So all of our personnel have been trained on that. I completed the archived third layer data backup just before the meeting. I had a 500-page spreadsheet with incidents on it, so that melted the computer. But we're ready to go with that. The NFIRS transfers will take place. I've been in contact with the ESO, so that's been a very, very smooth process. I've talked to some other agencies around where that wasn't the case, so we're in very good shape with that. Since we met last time, we've had 2 structure fires within the city of Brentwood that are noted on the report there. One of them was just a compressor motor and an oil unit down at the Irwin Schwartz building. That put out a ton of smoke out of the building, but there was very little fire. That was on the 3rd, and then later on that same day in the afternoon at 85 Tinulele, just down the street from the firehouse. This was a house that is occupied, but the residents weren't home. Had an electrical fire in their kitchen, which essentially gutted the kitchen, so we were able to get the quick knock on the fire and rescued the dog that was in there with no harm. And the dog pretty much tackled Carver when he was coming through the front door. So, he was like this, and the dog just jumped on him. So it counts as a rescue, but the dog was more interested in getting out than Bob was getting in the building. So right now, we're just estimating damages on that structure at $100,000 based off of smoke, water, and just the amount of burn that was in the kitchen. But the house is insured. They're working with the adjusters and the insurance company, and then Woodard also has been liaisoning with them as well. So that family is being well taken care of. We completed our medical direction meetings, so Lieutenant Herman and Chief Cottrell will be going through all of the presentations to figure out what is the best platform model that serves our needs for the fire department and EMS delivery, and also tries to stay within budgetary constraints. When I say we, they're anticipating giving a presentation for this committee probably sometime in April or May. That's generous on the timeline for that. The last for the monthly update is this PFAS information. So the traditional foam, Class B foam that we've used for years and years and years, has recently been found to be a known pollutant and carcinogenic agent. So there's a push right now. Our first contact we got was from the St. Louis County Department of Transportation and their Public Works, and they are essentially querying all agencies within the county to find out how much and what type of these PFAS chemicals that we have. So we have 105 gallons total over at the fire department. We've registered that with St. Louis County. We got an email late this afternoon from the Division of Fire Safety, so the state is actually now reaching out with DNR to get the same inventory, and they said that they're trying to figure out how much they have because they have a potential solution for remediation. I don't know what that looks like right now, but I do know with us only having 105 gallons, we are very, very low on the list. There are several departments that have tons more than that. So that's going to be more information to come. I don't anticipate anything happening too soon with this because they're still in the information and discovery phase for what's actually out there and what the scope of this project is going to be once they decide how much and then who, where you can remediate it.
Okay. Anybody have
Happy
any
to answer any
questions?
questions.
Questions? Thank you, Chief.
Sir.
All right. Dan? You were honored on a Engineers Day recently, so
I was, thanks.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Just have a smattering of a few little projects here. So the Manchester Road, those pedestrian mid-block crosswalk signs that MoDOT's still supposed to update. Meyer Electric's supposed to be out there next week. So that's what I was told earlier this week. The Litzinger Road bike awareness, if you drive down Litzinger, basically between McKnight and Brentwood Boulevard, you'll see some signs, and then you'll see those white chevrons, you know, the sharrows indicating to share the road for bicycle awareness. That's done. High school at Brentwood, that solar-powered LED stop sign, it actually arrived today through FedEx. Just to confirm, I believe we were saying to put it on the southeast corner of high school in Renwood. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we were gonna get that done Monday because we don't need to call in locates. We got some concrete jobs and households and stuff, but we figured we'd just do it Monday. The kit's there. We'll just take it out of the box and charge it. Brentwood Boulevard lane closures, as part of the improvements at the railroad crossing at Brentwood Boulevard, Missouri American has to move a water main to make room for the signals and things of that nature. So this water main relocation on the north and south sides of the UP railroad tracks will basically force north and southbound Brentwood Boulevard the neck down, you know, to merge down to one lane in each direction starting next week, Monday. You'll still be able to go southbound, make a right-hand turn and go westbound Russell. Russell traffic coming eastbound can go right and go southbound, but they can't go left through the work zone. So there will be some delays. Just wanted to make everyone aware. I know communications manager, she'll put out, or actually she already put out the information. I know I saw it on Nextdoor, so it's out there.
How long is that likely to last?
They said 3 or 4 weeks. So, you know, it depends on the weather, depends on if equipment breaks down or not. But I would say realistically, it's probably true 3 or 4 weeks. Because once they put the new main in, then they have to make connections and then abandon the old main. So it'll take a lot of coordination. But the goal is to get this all done, you know, during the month of March. That's it.
Do you have any questions for Dan? Hold there just for a second because I've only got one piece of business and then we're going to come right back to you. Thank you for that report. Item 7 on the consent agenda has to do with the meeting minutes from January 24th of 2024. Everybody on the committee had a chance to review those minutes. And does anybody have any changes, additions, redactions? Hearing none, seeing none, the minutes will stand as submitted. Do I need to have a vote on that necessarily? Not necessarily. So thank you. And now we turn to old business and the request for Madge Avenue traffic calming.
Okay, Madge Avenue, we ran the data collection back at the end of 2023. I believe we tabled it in December. I know I wasn't available for the January meeting, so now it's here in front of you. So you can kind of look and see the different data points. So this particular section of Madge would be between Annalee and Brentwood Boulevard. You know, that first block going west of Brentwood Boulevard. And then if you look at the actual data numbers, the 85th percentile speed was 29 miles per hour. So that means, you know, 85% of the cars are doing 29 or possibly less. And then the other fraction would be going over that speed limit. 50 percentile is 25 miles per hour. The average speed's 25. It is a posted 20. There's not a whole lot of vehicles that run through there, so we ran it for 14 days. The average daily traffic count is right around 460 vehicles per day, weekdays, and then 442 on weekends. So that's pretty similar to what we'd see on any residential street that's not, say, like a Pine or a White that's a major cut through. The interesting part, though, is once you look at that speed range table, I haven't seen one like this in quite some time, but 30 to 34 miles per hour, there's 898 vehicles, which represents 13.5% of the total. The total being 6,641 cars. And then you have 69 vehicles that were between 35 and 39, 6 vehicles 40 to 44, and so on and so forth. The highest speed, what was it, is 50 something. Yeah, 54, which is insane on a one-block stretch. But we have seen that before because I just wanted to look as a way of comparison. So the report we ran before that was at 9367 White back in August of 23, and it was pretty similar, a little over 6,600 vehicles. It had a max speed, someone did 51, and the daily counts were around the same, like middle 400s. But that one, its speeds of 30 and up was just a little over 1%, like 1.5, which is a total difference between White and here. Here on this particular street on Madge, it's a low volume, but there's a decent fraction that's going 30 and up, and I don't know why. We can run it again. You could try to do enforcement. We could put speed cushions in. It would just be another area to put them and impact parking and so on and so forth.
If you were to theorize that these numbers reflect a fairly robust group of folks that are attempting to use that street to cut through on a shortcut to Manchester Road, are speed humps and speed tables, are those effective in that? If that's the reason for them going there, and we deploy this traffic calming device as opposed to anything else, is that a good use of it in your opinion, or do you?
We've done it elsewhere. We've done it, on Pine. We've, looked at White. We've put it on Rosalie.
Right.
There's a block of Eulalie that has it. It's not like this is our first time doing this. And we did run it, at least on Pine, a before and an after, and I know that it did reduce it. I didn't know if you wanted to consider it here since there's not a huge volume, but there is that, what, perplexes me is that fraction. I don't like that number, that it's, roughly 14% can't keep their foot off the accelerator and do, say, 25, 20.
Right. So, given those findings, given the reports, does anybody want to make a motion with regard to traffic calming?
Well, I had a comment. I mean,
Oh, question? Yeah.
I mean, reading this right, I mean, it cut through being one thing, but it struck me that this is a speeding problem.
It is.
Huge speeding problem.
Right,
yeah.
and this is an example of facts and data bearing out, a belief about a street that, someone's going to get hurt.
I agree.
But if Alderman Lockmiller wants to make the motion, that's fine. That's what struck me about this, is that
Right.
I would
People
like to make a
speeding.
motion, but just to clarify, or disclose, I live on that street. I'm not the applicant. For years, my wife has been on me to do something about this, and finally, we had an applicant with children move in and had some concerns. A lot of this cut-through traffic is people avoiding Manchester and Brentwood lights. And the volume's low because unlike Pine, we're not a cut-through between like McKnight and Brentwood. The street stops there at Bremerton, so it's Bremerton to Brentwood, and I think that might be why the lower volume. But yeah, I would definitely like to make the motion to have speed cushions installed in the 8800 block of Madge.
Second to that motion?
second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 4 to 0.
Bola, does this have to be referred up to the full board for consideration, or is this something that can be handled?
No,
Is it a budget issue? Is that would be the
There's
reason?
money in the budget, so it's not a
Okay.
budget issue. We can,
They directed us, but did we
Yeah.
just bring it to the board's attention?
we can just notify the board, so
put it-
maybe under city administrator report.
Right.
We can just
Okay.
do that.
Steve?
Do we have these, speak-
We don't have them in stock, but I took measurements, so I mean, it's a standard size. It's just like what we ordered on other streets like Pine. So that street, you know, the cushions, the way we space them out will fit between like 22 and 26 feet from curb to curb, and that falls within that range.
but how long does it take to get? And
Typically, it's been 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, if I can get the quote tomorrow, place the order, you know, we'll bring it to the board's attention, but we already do have the budget for it. We can get it. It might even be sooner. I don't know. We'll
I just want
find
to
out.
make the applicant aware, so.
Yeah, we can notify them too, since they sent us the application, that it's been at least taken to this committee and advanced. So, okay.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Item A is a discussion on an ordinance amending Article 6 of Chapter 215 of the Brentwood City Code relating to firearms.
So this request comes from Mayor Dimmitt. He asked city attorney to draft legislation that would give our officers a little bit more leeway to block teenagers from openly carrying, because we know right now that minors can't get a concealed carry license. There's been discussion at the county level. And they've already enacted similar legislation, but what they're looking for is uniformity among all municipalities. And so there's been a meeting with Mayor Dimmitt, Mayor of Florissant, the Municipal League, along with County Council Chair Webb, encouraging more municipalities to enact similar legislation. So he's hoping that you all would give consideration to this, have favorable response, so that this can be forwarded on to the Board of Aldermen.
I read through the materials that were provided. I'd be curious to know what our Chief Spees thinks of the ordinance. And it seems like it's modeled on what's already been passed in the county. You already said that, I think. Okay.
The original ordinance, Alderman, was in the city of St. Louis, and then county adopted it. Clayton has adopted it. We have absolutely no problem with the ordinance as it's written. It would help us. We don't have specific issues at this point with open carry in Brentwood, but that doesn't mean at a protest environment and others that we wouldn't. So we definitely have juveniles that come through Brentwood that are armed, for sure. So that piece of this is certainly a concern for us. But I think the law strengthens our ability to be able to stop people that are coming into town. And I would think this is probably going to be more in a protest. We would see this than anywhere else.
Thank you.
We have
Does
no
anybody-
issue with the
does anybody on
ordinance.
the committee have a question for the chief or?
Or I guess generally, is this the best of what's out there, based upon our either your observation or our city attorneys? I mean, if you wanted more teeth, I'd give it to you. I mean, I am sad that
Love
we
some
have to
more.
vote on something like this, but you know, that's the state we're in, literally.
Anybody have any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to enact this ordinance amending Article 6 of Chapter 215 of the Brentwood City Code.
So moved.
Thank you. There's our second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka,
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims,
Yes.
Alderman Luckmiller,
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. And that will go to the full board. Okay. And that'll be on next Monday? Okay, thank you. The next item, item B, is an amendment to the ordinance number 5095, Fire Training Commission, and acceptance of the city of Maplewood as a full member of the Central Core Fire Training Commission. You've been out trolling for new cities.
Well, not necessarily, but
Okay.
Maplewood used to be a part of the conglomerate that we had, and then for reasons unknown, they dropped.
Right.
Now they would like to come back in as a full partner. So the ask is an amendment to the ordinance that created Brentwood, Clayton, and Richmond Heights to be the training commission. The training commission board met earlier this month and unanimously approved Maplewood to come in. Important to note that last night Clayton voted on the same issue, and they approved it as well. The upside to this is bringing another partner in deflates the cost. So instead of dividing the cost between 3 cities for the training, now it's divided between 4. So we'll still have a financial impact when we start building the training center. It's just not going to be as much because we'll be divided by 4.
As I was reading through this material, I was trying to think of downsides. Would there be any downside to the idea that if this group of cities gets to be crowded enough that one of the reasons we did this was to provide our officers more prime training time? Does that go away, or does that not a concern with just adding Maplewood at this point?
Not a concern right now because the commission controls how many people we let in. So if we, obviously the ordinance would have to be amended, but
Right.
If we want to do contract training, another city decides, hey, you got a really good thing going here. We'd like to bring your folks in. Not necessarily we're doing it as a revenue stream, but we can charge them for materials or whatever to offset some of our costs on the wear and tear on the facility. So yeah, there really is no downside to this.
Are there any questions with regard to this plan? If not, I would ask for a motion to amend the ordinance 5095 to include the city of Maplewood within the Fire Training Commission and acceptance of that city as a full member of the Central Core Fire Training Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Chairman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller? Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much. We come to our final opportunity for citizen comments. If there's anybody online or anybody in the room who wishes to address this board on any issues of public safety, you'll be given 3 minutes. Please identify yourself and your address when you do come to the microphone. Anybody online? I'll declare the citizen comment section closed, and seeing no additional items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.